Now pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this time, board members, review agenda. Does anybody have any additions or changes that they want to make to the agenda at this time? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'd like to make that motion.
So a motion by Mr. Heisel,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Talby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 3, approval of the minutes for the September 17, 2019 regular meeting, September 24, 2019 work and budget meeting. Any corrections or thoughts on those for a motion?
For motion number 257 regarding the church proposal, I think there's a couple little words that are different, but I don't really think it's material enough to bother changing them. I just wanted to note that.
So you're not offering a correction, you're just saying there was a couple of...
Yes.
I told Mr. Talby that he has a tough time talking tonight. He's going to speak really clear. Bronchitis right here.
Yeah, the bronchitis might be a little tough.
If there are no corrections or changes, then with noting what Mr. Heisel's statement, I'll ask for approval of the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Richardson,
Second.
second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, this time have some staff recognition.
Yes, we do. This time we have a group of bus drivers who work hard every day to get our kids to and from school safely and do a good job of that. And we're here tonight to recognize 25 of those who have been accident-free for 3 years or longer. Yeah. I've got Mr. Chris Parker. He's got a brochure, a handout here to show you how there are lots of things that's happened to help assist the drivers to do this. The improved driver training, the accident review committee that's been put together. It's made up by bus drivers and folks at the bus garage and some central office leadership also. And they review each and every incident of any kind. So I think there's been some things, and from those reviews we've learned things to do and not to do, and that's helped make our kids safer each day. So with us tonight, we've got Mr. Chris Parker with Winchester Insurance that has, I think, some...
Just one thing, Chris, for you. We have a certificate also.
Yeah.
When I give you a certificate, I'm just going to fist bump you. I've got a terrible cold, and I don't want you guys to get sick, so don't just give me a little fist bump when we come up. That's my practice.
Well, I'm going to shake your hand because I've got the gift card. And
There you go.
That'll
That'll be good. I want everybody to show up for work the next 2 or 3 days. So.
We started this a few years ago because we recognized that there was a significant problem, and you can see it on that chart. We had significant number of accidents, and the severity of those accidents was pretty bad. And so we started these driver trainings, more driver trainings. We did the accident review committee, which I think has done the most of all of it. And then once we saw that the review committee was working, I thought, well, we need to recognize people that are doing things right. So that is what started these driver awards. This is the 3rd year that we've done this. So each driver that qualified for this is 3 years as a driver, 3 years no at-fault accidents. So we have 25 drivers, I believe. They each get a little safe driving pin and a gas gift card. So first one we have, and if you're here, come on up. Christy Combs.
Here.
Fred Cornett.
Can we clap for them? You don't want to.
Yeah, we'll get a group picture of everybody once it's all done. If everybody.
Jacqueline Crouch. There you go, Jack.
Go here beside me.
Goble Davis. Christina Estep.
You got it right. I was surprised. Good job.
Destiny Griffith. Naomi Hager. Rachel Hatton. Teresa Hollingsworth. Beth Kagan. Nellie Lumpkins.
I didn't know who that was either.
Can I say that some of these drivers that are not here may be out driving the trip right now.
I just got back.
Walter Mathis. Laura McCord. Tracy Neely. Bronson No. Calvin Parker, no relation there. Donna Puckett. Bill Rawlings.
He told me to give his because he couldn't copy me.
Sure. Check that amount on that gas card. She'll fill up on the way home tonight.
Our driver representative on the Accident Review Committee, Jim Rorks. Rose Ross. I tell this every year, but my bus driver from Providence, Daryl Shaw. Meets the qualifications. Darlene Stemmick. Rebecca Warner. Kay Williams. Brenda Wilby.
Okay. You gonna get a
Okay, Williams.
Cracking up.
Those gas cards are for your buses.
I'm in the back, y'all can have the back.
I want in the back.
Most definitely not. Covering their legs. You don't want to have a video.
I think I am.
Yeah, no, but our coaches, we had good coaches.
Good to see you, Darryl.
Yeah, I think
Everybody look this way.
the copy of it, or McKay, whatever. Yeah, she drove here.
Guys, while you all are going back to your seats or getting ready to leave, I want to tell you on behalf of myself, the board, and the insurance company, we do appreciate everything you do. A lot of you, I got in that picture. I don't get in any of the pictures, but I got in that one. A lot of you guys were here when I came here, and I appreciate everything you've done in the 14 years, so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in 3 more.
No, but
Have a good night.
Y'all be careful.
A lot of accidents.
I think they had some bad boo-boos.
That 14, 15, there was a couple of major
Was there?
accidents, yeah. It doesn't take but one major one to run that cost up like that. That was it. The bus went over on its side. We had one completely turned over on its side with kids. So nobody hurt. Nobody hurt.
Okay. Under student learning and instructional service, item number 4, overview of District K prep results, Christy Bush, and I've asked Christy to give us a good district overview and be very brief, because I know we're going to go into this detail with the schools on 29th, is that right, when our next one is, and she can be back for that one as well to help answer any questions. But if you do have some questions, as long as they're not about individual schools, that's all right, we'll address all those when we get to the 29th. Okay, Christy.
I know that you had a chance to look at the PowerPoint. There are a few slides I'd like to go over with you, if you don't mind. Slide number 6 is the accountability weights that we will have in place for next year. So you see what the spring of 2020 will hold. If you will go to slide 24, you will see what those categories are. Of course, number 6 is the quality of school climate that we were not assessed on this year, but you can get a picture of the categories that the test scores resulted from those. And if you need to stop me, just tell me. If you will go to slide 41, you will notice that in reading and math, at a district level, we are higher than the state, which is great news. If you will slip over to slide 42, you'll see that our science scores are a few points higher at the elementary level, and we do have some work to do in social studies and writing, and we are talking and discussing those areas. Slides 43 through 52. If you've noticed, they are per grade level, they are percentages, and where you see the dash marks, those are suppressed scores. That means that it's too small of a group, it's 10 students or less. And there is a chance for confidentiality reasons that you or a school or someone could determine who those particular students are. So anything that is below 10 is a suppressed score, and that's why you see dashes. Slide 54, it talks about our growth. We are above 50%, which is good. That means that as a district, we are growing. The students have a year's worth of growth, and we're moving forward. And lastly, if you'll look at 58 and 59, you can see where we are going toward all the way to 2022 with our testing and our categories, our field testing groups for everyone on our 3rd grade all the way to 11th graders. Of course, freshmen are not tested at this time.
Key thing to look at there is when you see that in green, that's online. You start to see all that, how everything's turning green. In the next couple of years, we're going to be everything online. So we're starting to make prep for that. We field tested some online stuff this last time, but we're still working diligently toward making sure that we have the capabilities to do this online.
The Curriculum and Instruction Department has already been speaking with principals and with our technology department, looking at numbers, looking at computers, students for those grade levels. We're doing that now for the spring because it is a field test.
Will they be providing recommendations if we're on the technology level not up to speed?
Right now, Mr. Napier says that we are, I'm sorry, but capacity-wise, the internet service and that type of thing, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple schools that are not as far along hardware-wise, you know, the laptops or the Chromebooks or whatever they have for the students. So we're looking at that. Right now, RDC is the only school that's a one-to-one. The high school is pretty close, Baker's pretty close, but we have some areas at the elementary level to work on. So that's why we started so early.
And that's why you'll generally hear principals, when they start talking about needs, you'll hear technology, because they're aware of what's coming here.
Christie, could you kind of explain the STAR system a little bit and what it takes to get a STAR and how you can get one taken away from you?
On slide 17, you'll see the cut scores for the district. We are, for the district, elementary, middle, and high, 3-star, as you know. You'll see the cut scores that we're at 59 range through 70.9. Now, if you have a significant decrease in a particular area, which would be African American, disability, EL students, that if you were a 4-star school, that would take you down a point. So as, you know, as conscious as our principals want to be, maybe in a significant group that they are right now, we want to make sure that we're watching all areas, because normally when you're in one group, another may slide because all of your attention is on that one. So we want to make sure all of our groups are diligent. You know, we're looking at those and making sure all students are proficient. Because we would hate to have a school that's a 4-star and then we lose that star down to a 3. Did that answer your question, Mr. Chairman?
That was pretty close.
Josh would say, well, I was being remiss in my job if I didn't make note that he was very close to a 5-star school. We had some schools, we had 4 that had significant gaps in the areas of SPED. So we're putting plans together for those. If you're a 4 or a 5-star school and you have one of those significant areas, then they will deduct a star just for that. And so, and you'll see in your PowerPoint what it takes to increase in what they look at in each of the areas at each school to increase. Keep in mind that the KDE has said that the STAR system is a system that was designed so that you cannot compare schools to other schools. I don't know how you don't compare a 3-star to a 4-star, or a 4-star to a 5-star, but the STAR system was come up with and was designed so that schools aren't to be compared to each other. There's lots of other things that goes into the STAR ratings and things, but they're compared.
Our department with our principals, we want to look at all students.
Yeah.
Make sure they're all growing.
Might add too, if you look at the STAR ratings of all the schools that we're not supposed to compare to, all schools around this area, we're at or above with those. And the largest percentage of the schools in the state are in that 3-star. I think I'm correct in saying that, Brenda. That's probably the largest. And we knew that going into it, that's where a lot of people was going to be. This is the first year for that. So it's kind of like in the testing thing, they kind of moved the cheese a little bit, and you've got to figure out how they're doing things and how they expect things to be done. So I expect that there'll be improvements.
Any other questions for Ms. Bush? Like I said, we will go in depth on this a little bit more in a couple of weeks with the schools. So. Thank you.
Thank you.
Student Support Services, item number 5, review of first quarter finances for the general fund.
Hopefully you've had a chance to look through this. It's the same format as it has been as the times before. Failed to number the slide, so I apologize for that. But if we'll go to the 3-year comparison, the next slide, please. When you're looking, the biggest thing to look at is across the bottom, our total revenue collection at this point. We're 26% as of the first quarter. This time last year, we were 28%. The year before, we were 34%. So we're down a little bit in collections as far as that goes. Any questions with revenues? Yes, sir.
Interest, it seemed like there's been some oddball things that have gone through that. What is our typical interest earnings now that things have settled down?
We are earning right now 2.5%. As you have seen, the first quarter is always our slimmest when it comes to our earnings because that is our least cash flow for the moment, till taxes pick back up into the second quarter. So the first quarter we've earned almost 20,000 in the first quarter, you can see for this year. Last year, our balances were higher. We have significantly spent some of our savings contingency money in the last year, so that's made those balances, those reserves go down. So last year, interest was higher. We were actually earning anywhere from 2.25 to 2.75 at its highest in last school year. So the interest has dropped just a little bit. We were having a good rate last year, so interest was up due to that last year, and we had more money in our contingency last year when you're looking at the comparison between the years. Is that?
Yeah, I think the 2.5%, I can take that right over the balance sheet, sort of ballpark it.
We'll move on to expenses. If you'll just flip, I'm not sure what slide number, the 3-year comparison now. Right there. So here, 3-month comparison for the first quarter. As you can see, percent-wise, we're at 13% spend. As of the first quarter, we were at 12% this time last year, so pretty close. Percentage for 18 was 9%, budget was higher, so, and we had not spent quite as much at that time either of the first quarter. So biggest changes you're gonna see is through that employee benefits line, the 0200 series. You can see that that number in our 0200 series is not quite as high as last year. And that is, last year we paid upfront in full our workers' comp in the first quarter. So that is a huge chunk of money that got paid out in the first quarter. We have switched workers' comp companies and they are billing us quarterly now at this point. So we've only paid 1 quarter of that insurance, whereas this time last year we had paid the full year. So that's a big drop you can see in the expense there. In your 0400, that is where you see that expense has gone up, and each year this past 2 summers you all have authorized quite a bit of paving and blacktopping projects through the summer and maintenance things that needed to be done, and security improvements to our buildings, and it falls within that line item, that 0400. So you've seen that line item go up the last couple years and each quarter just due to the fact that you all have put significant funds into maintenance and security projects. That's where that falls. Any questions there on our expenses? Yes, sir.
I think you mentioned before, but I forgot the number. Things that are sort of one-time encumbrances or maybe one-time spending like we did in the summer, how much is that in our current budget? Do you have a ballpark number of what that is?
In the current year we're in, we've not really tapped into the one-time.
We've not really.
Last year, I mean.
Well, there's encumbrances from last year that got rolled into this year.
Yes, so, did I have that number at some point? I think it's about 500,000 rolled forward with that. I have to go look at that specific line item, but we had a lot of projects in the middle of, that rolled the budget forward with that line item. And that, mostly those fall within that 0400 and 0700 series where we were doing equipment, security equipment, and maintenance and repairs and that type of stuff. It's around 500,000 for that. It was summer projects that rolled forward.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So overall, we're kind of spot on for how we operated last year, percent-wise. This quarter.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. Item number 6, consider approval of capital funds request.
Anything on that?
No.
This is
You
our
can stay
summer
here.
projects where we, back in May, committed current year capital funds to fund, because we knew they would roll over into this school year, which they did. So this is just reimbursing general fund from that excess capital funds money.
Any questions for her?
So just to clarify, this bucket of capital fund money doesn't have anything to do with the different projects the athletic projects we have going on. This is a separate pot of money.
This is our capital outlay money that we, every year. So the budget every year, we take our debt service.
They set aside so much every year by requirement for it.
Okay.
The SEEK formula mandates how much gets set aside.
And if this is approved, will that change what our projected profit and loss is for the year? Or will it still stay the same? I'm confused how that flows through.
I don't understand. Like as far as general fund goes?
Yeah.
It's infusing more money in the general fund,
increase.
so it would make that loss.
So this should increase our position,
Yes.
or
Yes.
make it more positive?
Yes, it would make it more positive.
Positive. I'm not sure if more positive is right. By 182. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yes, sir.
We need to approve that?
We need to approve the capital funds request,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve item number 6, capital funds request?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisel.
Second.
Is that Ashley? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Item number 7, consider approval of new custodian athletic facilities job description. Mr. Christie.
You have a copy of that job description. This is the job that we talked about as we added facilities on, that we knew we were going to have, we were adding a lot of square footage to our current custodial group. This is the positions that would be used at the athletic facilities. They would also do, if they're at a point athletically, facility-wise, they were caught up, which is difficult because you move from football season into the gym and then from there into the practice facilities and from baseball to softball, those things. So this is a lot for 2 people, but you see the job descriptions there. And obviously, if there's at any point that they were caught up, we would use them where we need them in a building. This one, the one thing I think makes this custodial position different is during the interview process, we will have to be very explicit in explaining these are varied hours dependent upon athletics and those type things. These are not hours that set, 8 to 5 daily. There's got to be some flexibility in their hours to fill these positions.
I will say that Leanne and Sandy out there have done a great job, but I know they work to death out there. Board member questions and comments?
Is this a pay scale 6 as the other custodians are?
This is on the pay scale.
It says-
We have the pay scales in front.
I think it's 12. But those numbers don't mean much. It's the same as grounds.
Grounds custodians.
Because the class code 7609, when I went back to the class code change that we did back in this summer, it says 7609 is a 6, so that's where I get confused as to which one of the pay scales it was going to be.
It would be the classified hourly table. And then where it says 6.
You've got to look that on your little tiny phone? I wish I had good eyes and I was young again.
You never know when you're going to get a question
Just wish I was young again.
or where you're going to get one.
Is this just the job description we're approving, or are we adding
No,
staff to this?
Well,
This motion? Or
I
this
would-
approval?
I would assume that by adding this job description that I would have the leeway to start the interview process. We had talked about, was going to try to hold off until December, till the gym came online, but we're we're paying out more in overtime working with these other custodians to keep it going than we would be paying if we went on and brought 2 people on and dedicated them to this.
I was trying to look back at, I'm not jumping on anyone's questions. Through the history, it seemed like a while ago, a couple years ago, I guess, we added some custodians to Campbell, and then we were going to move some of those over as the facility got built out. Are we still doing that?
We've moved those. We've already made, as we've had people that have left, we've moved those, so there's no extra ones now.
So the bump up we did have at RDC is now back down. Okay, and those have.
Those that we did back then are empty now. There's no one in those positions.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? Not I'll entertain a motion.
Custodians are on a pay scale 6, so when you look at classified hours, you say we run 6, and that's the rate.
Okay, and this new position is also a 6.
No, it's in 12. It's being treated kind of like a lead supervisor custodial position. Since they have so many duties and varying hours.
Yeah, they're working.
And it is less days and hours.
Yes.
Do you think maybe it should see then, say, 7605 class code, or do I not understand how all that works?
It's not on here yet. The class code is not on the existing pay scale yet until this is approved, and then I will add it once you all approve it. So it's not been.
I know what your question is. It'll probably say the same code, and it'll say custodian athletics and have its own line.
Okay. Bottom line, it'll be at 12.
It's not there
It'll be
yet.
a 12.
Okay.
Sorry.
So we're hiring 2 people with this, just one? Oh, we're hiring 2?
Yep.
Just 2.
And then that is or is not in our current year budget?
It is not. It will be treated as a growth position this year.
Did you all estimate what the impact will be on this year?
I don't have it right in front of me. We looked at it. I don't remember it wasn't. And I don't even remember what the per hour is right now. It will be less than what we're paying in overtime right now, put it that way.
I'm sorry to jump on your question, Mr. Perry.
No, it's fine. I mean, I'm just waiting for everybody to be through. If you are, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Tolby. I'll second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item number 8, consider approval of the revisions to the Chief Academic Officer job description. Mr. Christie.
You should have a copy of that provided in your packets. It's with great duress that I even bring this up to even talk about it. Brenda's leaving us, and I appreciate everything she's done in all the years. And of course, we'll get another opportunity to recognize her. But that as positions are vacated, we go back and look at the job descriptions and we update them to a lot of these job descriptions haven't been looked at for many years. So you'll find when you look in some of them, there are things that are obsolete, no longer even programs in the schools that are in those. And that's what some of the changes that you see in this one. There are some other changes, and I'll be glad to answer some questions if you have questions about those. But this is pretty much, with the exception of a couple of things, is almost identical to what Ms. Considine does on a daily basis. So with the exception of I've added to oversee the district special ed and preschool programs. The special ed, especially as we talked about in the testing, that's where at 4 schools we were dinged, and we had a group there that was not meeting where they should be at the test. So my moving the SPED does not change the director of SPED, doesn't change anything. It just puts the SPED program under the purview more of the superintendent and the chief academic officer, because I think the changes that we're going to need to do there are academic changes. That's what it's going to take, is making some changes there in the SPED program to avoid these gaps that we're seeing in the schools on the SPED programs. So that was my reason for doing that. And that's something that was added to it. That is one thing that was added to it. Like I said, that's just the curriculum oversight piece of it. That's not overseeing the entire program or running the program or anything. That's the curriculum piece to it. That's working in conjunction with the director of SPED and myself.
Board member questions, comments?
Is that the only difference?
Well, there was a change in the requirement for the position. The past one, it required a superintendent certification and a supervisor of instruction certification. If it's left that way, my thinking on that way is if it's left that way, that is going to limit the number of applicants that you may have for the position. I will tell you that in that position, I think in the district, currently, that would probably only be either 3 or 4 people. 3, I think, that has both those certifications. Now, my thought on this was if you did not require the superintendent certification, if someone came in, once we go through the interview process, it was my intention to see that person, whomever is hired, prior to being hired, is working toward that superintendent certification. And that would be something that they would be working toward. Now, that's the one thing on there that I'm negotiable on that. If you all think that they need to have a certification of superintendency coming into it, I'm okay with that. I would agree to that change here tonight. Just knowing that that's going to limit probably the number of folks who are able to apply for the position. I consider this to be right there as important a job in this district as what mine is. We've got several of those, I think, but this is an important position, so I wanted to do everything that we could do to open it up to give us the opportunity to look at as many possibilities as we could.
Well, I do feel as a board member that I would like the second in command to be able to take over for the first in command if that were to happen. I mean, that's a rare case, I guess, that happens, but and you said that you would talk to them about that, but this is not in the job description. I think that it doesn't say pursuing.
No, it doesn't.
That's what I'm.
No, it does not say pursuing. It says.
I would think at the very least that we would have to say superintendent certification or a proven plan of something of those nature of something. I mean, those are my thoughts. I mean,
So you could say progress toward.
Yeah.
And decide, progress toward, already have been accepted in a program, something along those lines that you could put in there. Other board members' thoughts, I mean.
It could be added to.
I just believe that second in command has to be able to take over. That's my thoughts.
What's the process of providing or attaining superintendent certification?
It's coursework through a university, and it
How long
amounts
does it
to, you could probably do it, somebody was really working hard on it, they could probably start on it now and have it before the end of school this year. If they already have certifications up to a certain, if they've already got their principalships and they're up to a certain level, which they would have to get the supervisor of instruction. If they were at that level to have that certification, probably it's going to be 12 hours, okay, sorry, 12 hours, that's 4 classes.
Some of them may have those hours already, though, possibly in the programs that they have. I mean, it's, but it is above.
Go ahead.
Mr. Perry, following on what you were just talking about second command, that wording actually is missing from this revised. The last description says explicitly, under duty serves as the second person of the chain of command and in the absence of the superintendent as the chief administrative officer of the district. I don't know, it seems to me like that should be in this revised description, either in this description or in this description for somebody in the district. I mean, I hate to paint a worst case scenario, but sometimes emergencies happen and you might be out, Mr. Christie, and I think it probably makes sense for or a designation to have tagged that to somebody in the district? If it's not, if you don't think it makes sense for this position, then somebody ought to have that.
Thought I had the old one, I was gonna look, see how it was worded in the old one.
I've got the old one right here if you want it.
I'm not sure, where does it say in there? Okay, I see it now, I've got a copy of the old one, serves as the second person in the chain of command.
It's right there.
Well, I mean, I'm okay with that. And that certainly, I did not intend to take that out as the intent. And when you look at my chain of command type thing and how everything's laid out, it certainly shows that the chief academic officer is the second one.
Okay, let me just clarify then. So I would, as part of this process, propose that we add back the wording that was in the old one, says, serves as the second person in the chain of command, and in the absence of the superintendent, as the chief administrative officer of the district. That's what the old one said. And are you happy
I'm
with
okay with
adding
putting that in, and I will tell you, I didn't know that was in the old one.
Oh, I wouldn't
And Ms.
criticize.
Considine, I lean on her, she knows when I'm not here who's in charge, so I don't expect that to
I
change.
just, you know.
And it wasn't my intention to change that.
I get bogged down in the details and miss the big picture.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem putting that in. We can
Okay.
add that. I did not mean that was going to circumvent this person from being the next one. I didn't mean to leave it out for that reason.
So if we got around to a motion, it's okay with adding that in there.
This job description that you're seeing here is modeled after some of our surrounding counties and KDE, or KSBA recommendation for this position is what it's modeled after.
And two little minor things. The old one said that you have a valid Kentucky professional certificate for superintendent. How do you know? And this one says a valid Kentucky teaching certificate, and then once we get to certification for structural leadership, supervision, and instruction, the word valid is not there. I don't even know what.
You're trying to narrow my field down here.
I don't know what the
You
impact
gotta
of
make it
whether
valid
it's
now.
valid or not valid.
They can't.
Valid is outdated.
Yeah,
Because
that-
let's face it, you've either got a certification
Yeah,
or
you
you
don't.
don't.
So, okay, so they don't
In fact, we
expire.
probably need to
Because
strike
if
the
they
valid
expire, they're not
Kentucky.
there. They're not, they don't
So
show.
if it expires, they don't have it.
They don't have it.
Okay.
That's a
I'm
given.
trying to be modern on y'all.
Probably should take the valid part out of the teaching part of it
Well,
also.
modern's my middle name, not, of course, is my first name. And the other word that was missing from the beginning is, it said providing leadership in developing, achieving, and maintaining the best possible educational program. Did you mean to leave the word achieving out
Where are we?
at the very beginning? It said developing, achieving, and maintaining the best possible. And now it just says planning, developing, and maintaining. The word achieving is left out. I don't know if that was an oversight or intentional or what.
Well, if you're developing, maintaining it, you're going to achieve it. So I just tried to cut some of the words out, I think.
You're good with leaving achieving out then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. If we're developing, maintaining, and evaluating, then you're achieving. You should be.
No, I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, yeah, okay. You're right. Yeah, we can add that word if it makes it feel
You
better.
can
We'll add
develop and
that.
maintain and not achieve. You can just maintain,
Okay.
you know.
We just felt like we were too wordy already, so I was trying to cut some words out where we
Well, I thought we
could.
had one more word in there.
We can add that one.
In between-
Achieving.
In between developing and maintaining, put the word achieving. And with that Oxford comma or whatever they call this.
Yeah.
Is it possible that we could do an interim
Yes.
while this,
Yes,
until?
it is. After November the 1st, we can do an interim. I've already spoken with KD, and that's a possibility that depending on how everything goes, that, that's certainly a possibility that I can work with KD, and they'll work with me to provide some names for me to choose from as an interim.
I'm not sure that would be a board decision.
No, it's not.
That-
It's not.
that would
But
be
that's something I have
entirely-
explored, and
Okay.
that is a possibility depending on applicants and times for interviews. And you've got to look at, there is the possibility that if it ends up from outside this district, that someone can't be released from their current contract. So there may be a reason why we would have to have an interim. So I've already explored that with KDE, and there are folks who are retired from these positions, this type of position, superintendent type positions that would come in, that are available.
Excuse me. I think I would like to see where, the requirements they would, have to have a school, have to have the superintendent certification.
I would as well.
Just the super and not working toward just the super.
I would,
Yeah.
I mean, if, like you said, if it's, you know, between here and the end of the year to get, I would think there's maybe some people out there that already have it, if it's that quick to get.
We have 4 in our district that has both, 3 or 4. I have to go back and look, it's 3 or 4 that has both.
And like you said, there may be others in other districts.
Yeah, this will be advertised through KDE on their website.
So to make sure I understand the point we're talking about, right now we say it's preferred, and you're thinking is take the word preferred out, which simply says that they have the certificate as a school superintendent.
Well, if this person is going to be second in charge of our school district, in case of an emergency, I think they should, in my opinion, I think they ought to have a superintendent certification.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, just to go back over, just to make sure, on the job description that we have in front of us, in the first line, we are putting achieving in there between developing and maintaining, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, the part about second in command, where would that be inserted?
First line right there above, in representative duties, just like it was on the old job description. I'll use the exact same
I
wording.
don't have the old one, but just, okay.
I'll
right
use the
there.
exact same wording, serves as the second person in the chain of command, and in the absence of the superintendent, as the chief administrative officer of the district. Use the same wording that was in the old one. Put it down that first line under representative duties.
And then the only other change would be education and experience, or was there anything else that I've left out there?
I think it just said strike the word preferred.
Just on the,
Well, that was on the licenses and requirements.
So it would
Yeah,
read,
I'm sorry.
if we're taking out valid, just a Kentucky teaching certificate, certification for instructional leadership, supervisor of instruction, and certification as a school superintendent.
just taking out the word preferred, then,
Yes.
right?
And adding "and" in between.
Any other comments or questions from board members? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept this document with corrections, or with changes. I don't guess they're corrections, just changes.
We're keeping the preschool and special ed, right? That's still,
Everything's the same except for the things that I mentioned right there,
Okay.
correct?
I just
I
wanted to
just want to
make
make sure that that's what we've put out here. Okay.
I'll make that motion with those 3 changes.
I'll second.
So a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any negatives? No. Okay. Item number 9, consider approval of pay application number 22 to Codell Construction Contractors and Suppliers for GRC Gymnasium Athletics Field Project BG 16238 in the amount of $609,103.37. Mr. Christie.
Recommendation for pay applicant, to pay the pay application as requested for work completed.
Any board members, questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
second.
second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Item number 10, consider approval of pay application number 8 to Codell Construction Contractors and Suppliers for the GRC Fieldhouse Athletics Projects BG 18334 in the amount of $580,221.06. Mr. Christie.
Recommendation to pay application number 8 for work completed.
Board member questions, comments? Or I'll entertain a motion.
Just, Mr. Christie, can you give us an update on gymnasium, where we're at? Are we ahead of schedule?
Well, we're gaining back. I think where we're backed up a little bit, we're gaining back some. Weather's been very cooperative. Hold up, I think one of the things, waiting on windows. We have a construction meeting at 9:30 on Thursday, 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, the construction trailer. Y'all are, any or all of you invited to attend that.
Should have windows going in, though.
Yeah. There's been some pretty tense conversations going back and forth on the windows, and I think now they're ready to start moving forward with those. The ceiling acoustical stuff's up, it's there, the beams are painted, the scoreboards and video boards are hanging, already up. They were working on speakers, the speaker system today. I didn't make it out there this afternoon. With that, with the windows going in this week, and that means probably by the first of the week, we should be able to start conditioning the air inside there, which means the bleachers, I think, are to be delivered Tuesday, so they'll go with the upstairs bleachers, they can start on those with the air being conditioned. Once the bleachers are upstairs, then they can start on the flooring downstairs. It's scheduled to come in the next week or two, next week also. So they'll start the flooring, the wood flooring down, they'll put the flooring down, and once they get the flooring down, they'll finish the part where the bleachers are gonna sit, then they can start to put the bleachers on the lower part, and then they'll come back in and finish the floor at a later date. Our biggest concern, I think we've got, is the railing system around the top. That's the biggest catch that we've got right now, and I think there's a lot of efforts being made to try and do something to speed that up. That's the biggest glitch that we've got right now, but it's coming along pretty nice.
Is the railing, is it back ordered or something? What's the issue?
It's the cabling system there, the changes that had to be made and to support the extra, because it's so high and it's got to support a certain amount of tension, and they had to change the system to be able to put enough tension on those cables to make them tight all the way around there. But they've been on that now for some time, and I think they've got that worked out.
Yeah, we've been reviewing the shop drawings, and we were calling all that into question when we saw the shop drawings, and so we had them go back and revise that.
It's been revised, and is it at the production folks now? It's in their hands now? It's been there for a couple, 3 weeks, and they were saying 10 to 12 weeks back then, so that's the thing, that's the furthest thing out for us right now. Once they get that conditioned, I'd like to get this group together, and I'd like to take you out on a tour and go through and see everything, so we can get in there. The lights are all up, and go in and turn the lights on now and see, and it's, even where it is right now, it's beautiful when you go in there, and it's, there's still a lot to be done, but it's coming along good.
So does anyone want to venture a guess as to when we might be able to?
I still remember.
Had it.
What was it?
The rail system, we're looking at
Yeah.
mid-December at earliest before we have it. That's just obtaining the material, so, we're looking sometime in January, realistically.
Well, I think the truth is helpful though, or at least best estimate. I'm sure you tell the truth no matter what, best estimate.
If it can be speeded up, it will.
A lot, since the work at the stadium has ceased, the amount of work that's happening at that gym is significant. So it's come along, a long way in the last 30 days. If you haven't been out there.
It sounds like the railing system can be one of the last things installed.
It is, and that's going to be very difficult. Installing that, welding that entire system. You're going to have
Bleachers in and floor down.
Bleachers now will be in place about that. It's going to be a.
The problem's going to be you're not going to be able to get a certificate of occupancy.
Right.
Until that's done.
Yeah,
that's going to be the holdup. That would be the holdup.
Sounds like protecting everything around it too, if you got a
You
weld.
couldn't wait on anything else.
Yeah.
It's been a long time in the works, so we're just designing and getting it. So other work's got to continue.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Item number 11, consider approval pay application 1514-34 Ross Charn Architects for GRC Gymnasium Athletics Project, BG 16238, in the amount of $36,067.20. Mr. Christie.
Recommend pay of the pay app as requested for work completed.
Board member questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisler.
Second.
Second by Mr. Talby. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Item number 12, consider approval of pay application 1829-13 Ross Charn Architects for the GRC Fieldhouse Athletics Project BG 18334 in the amount of $11,739.43. Mr. Christie.
A recommendation of pay application for services completed.
Board member questions or comments? Go ahead.
The amount, the $11,739.43, I believe that should be revised, Ms. Ellis, because the $4,400 was already paid.
Yes. And actually, on the previous one, the the amount you already just paid as well.
So-
36,000.
It was really, we've already paid the 7/14/59, so really you're due the 29/52/61 on the previous, and this is 72/65.
Give me those numbers again.
Pay the one previously that you just did.
Was
Instead of
29,000.
36,000, it's $29,052.81.
81,
61, I'm sorry.
61?
61 cents.
Getting older.
All right, should we go back and amend that motion then at this time? Okay, item
My motion too.
number 11.
All the time Brian thought I was perfect.
Mr. Heisel, you agree to amend that motion?
Yes,
with
sir.
the
I'm
change
sorry I
right there?
missed that.
Okay. Mr. Talby, you agree to that? All those in favor say aye. Okay.
Yeah, let's just confirm that. I didn't jot it down. I was so mad at myself for getting it wrong.
29,052 and 61 cents.
Yep. And then item number 12 was?
Should be $7,265.67.
67 cents. You guys thought you were going to take a trip, wouldn't you?
I apologize, I thought those had already been corrected. I knew there was a correction on it, and I thought they'd been made on that time.
Good catch, Mr. Heisel.
Maserati goes back.
All right, do we have a motion on that one, on number 12?
Make a motion with that correction.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 13, consider approval of pay application number 20 to Performance Services for the Guaranteed Energy Savings Project in amount of $100,000. Mr. Christie.
Recommend payment for, they've actually completed the project. We're going through punch list, and we're still holding back some retainage just till they complete everything, but the amount we're holding back would suffice enough to complete the punch list that we have left.
Now, this is the roof?
This is what we're holding back for, but this was for the energy performance. This was the
this
new
was it.
HVAC systems that was put in.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's all up and functional, and we're just holding retainage back for the punch list things that have not been completed. But paying this $100,000 will still leave enough to cover what's left to be done.
And I guess at some point, we need to pull out the old contract and see when we start.
That's part of their
verifying the savings
responsibility, is
and
give us annual reporting on that too, so.
Do you know when that'll start?
He actually called me today, just set up a time.
So we're at the 1 year mark?
I'm not sure exactly the time limits. He just gave me a call today, and he wanted to come by and sit down and start talking about when he was gonna come out and actually start putting numbers to paper. So other than that, I don't know.
We'll have to go back and look at the substantial completion dates and when they had all the equipment in place that would start to generate the savings, and we'll have to agree upon a date to start the process from.
Do you recall what the contract states on how many years they'll come back and provide that?
I have to go back and pull the contract. It's 20 years.
Oh, great, yeah, good.
Other questions, comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisel. Is that Ashley? Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Item number 14, review and consideration for approval to retain service for Ross Tarn Architects, Clark County Schools, and complete the district facility plan for 2020 through 2024. Mr. Christie.
Recommendation to retain services of Ross Tarrant in the completing the district facility plan, as they've already done part of it. And we had bid this out prior, and their cost estimates to stay on and complete the rest of this is less than the other bids that we had.
Board member questions, comments?
The only question I had is, I went back to look at the JRA contract, and I should have sent this to you earlier, Mr. Thomas, but the JRA contract is like 7 pages that detail exactly what they were gonna do and, what the deliverables were and the scope and things like that. And I should have sent it to you earlier, Mr. Thomas, then I could then ask the question, do you think there's anything of substance that was in the prior contract that you'd like to see in this, or do you think there'll be a contract that'll be coming along and this is just actually sort of an umbrella overview of a future contract?
Being as I wasn't here the last time, I did have a chance, Mr. Chairman, with your, I did have a chance to to look at that, and I think we need to look at what the scope is, and in this particular, we are asking to retain their services. We have not asked to enter into a contract to spell out what their roles and responsibilities necessarily would be, at least as it relates to this motion.
It's to do the facilities inventory that's required for the facility planning, and there's very specific guidelines as to how that's done, and they would meet those guidelines, and the guidelines are set forth by KDE, where in the past with JRA, it was a totally different system then. It's all through this Kentucky Facilities Inventory and Classification System, and Ross Tarn has already assisted us in putting some in. JRA didn't have to do that back then. This is a new system that KDE has come out with, that we have to put all this very detailed data in there, and we have to maintain that, and at any time from the state level, they can monitor what condition their facilities are in or what we've done, when the last time things were done, and that kind of stuff. So there's a very detailed process that they go through on the paperwork. They don't kind of pick and choose what they're inventorying or what they're doing. It's completing the paperwork as required by KDE. So, I mean, we can get a copy of that if you want.
Yeah, and I can help. I mean, so in February, we ended up being selected to work with the district to do this K-Fix, this inventory system. And that is very regimented and everything that need to be done, and we agreed to that at 3 cents a square foot. And what's taking place now is we're looking ahead at the actual district facility plan, which you have to have the K-Fix completed in order to be able to start that facility plan process. So we've been on board to do just that one component, and then we're asked to help with the actual facility plan itself. And so we went ahead and looked at, okay, we need this 2 cents because the Department of Education had a 5 cents per square foot kind of a recommendation, and that was before all the K-Fix. And so we know from experience what that's costing us in additional time and effort to get all this stuff done through the Department of Education requirements. So we're doing that, and now what we're looking at is assisting your DFP, your district facility plan, kind of coordinator that you've got through KSPMA. So you have, I think it's going to be Tim Eaton, yes, who will be actually trying to assist, just like Don Martin did in your previous facility plan. And so we'll be working with Mr. Eaton and attending meetings and providing him information as required based on the output from the facility plan and the membership asking for cost opinions, renovations, additions as a part of the facility. So it's really it's a little open-ended, but our relationship with the district, we're willing to kind of, say we'll do this for this additional 2 cents, so it still stays within the KDE guideline for the facility plan process.
This K-Fix was not required of the last time we did a facility plan. This is a new system that's come out. Yeah. It wasn't in place for the last facility plan. We didn't have to do any of this at the last one.
There's over 900,000 square feet that we're
inventorying,
yes.
Up from like 500,000 last time?
4 years?
Yeah, probably more. Probably a little bit more. I mean, what we've had really is, I guess, the
high school ATC.
The high school and the ATC and even Justice. And, yeah, so it's grown. And we weren't a part of that last one with JRA,
So, Mr. Thomas, I guess my question is, for us to proceed on this right now, do you feel comfortable if we just, if the board thought this was the right entity to contract with, what they proposed, will that suffice right now and later on?
Right now, that's right.
Do you think they need more of a detailed contract? Maybe that's
as we determine what those plans are, as we begin to change those plans. If you look at the JRA, there was actually a schematic of what a building was, and there was actually an inventory that they had attached showing that, I think this is right, of some school in Manchester, I believe, was the school that they had picked. In this particular case, you've already got the inventory system, which is already in place. We know kind of what we want, so I think that there will be some modifications to the services that Ross Turner is going to provide once those are specifically identified.
Yeah, the K-Fix took the place. It actually has that inventory system that takes care of a lot of those things, and then even the new template that was created is called Space Planner, and so that's a new add-on module that we're completing right now that identifies how the current buildings, classrooms and everything are being used. And so that will then be used to do a comparison based on student population, the KDE model program to serve that group of students, and getting that to the LPC for them to evaluate. Is kind of what this next step would be.
So the answer would be yes.
And I'll be more than happy to put together some kind of,
The
a
legal
little more
term, yes.
detail or whatever it is. I mean, talking with Mr. Eaton, we can kind of figure out exactly what it is that he's going to require of us.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
Second.
second by Ms. Ashley, okay. I'll get you all, I think it's my head stopped up right there. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Item 15, consider approval of change order 1-4, 4-6, 5-8, 6-4, 8-4, 9-4, 10-4, 11-4, 12-5, 13-6, 15-4, 16-3, 17-7, 18-10, 19-22, and 19-23 to all contractors for the GRC Gymnasium Athletics Field Project VG 16-238. Mr. Christie.
Recommend approval of all the change orders as listed. This is your weather days, and that's each of those change orders is a specific company, contractor that's on the job site. It's the same, they're all the same, it's the same change, but it's all the contracts.
So my understanding on this, just because it's a little different change orders, there's no cost to this, so we're just approving the extra days? I'm sorry?
At the very end, there is.
At the very end, it says no, total expense is zero on the initial request. I did see a charge too. Where's it at? $8,570, rising sign.
I think one of those, that last one should have
Was-
been included in this same motion. You got 1922 and 1923.
Mm-hmm.
One of those is the time, and that other one is something else that.
1923 is.
Yeah, that's probably I'm drawing a blank on that. I don't have any listing in front of that.
It's the helmet.
That's the
Oh,
helmet.
and we've not done
Yeah.
that. We've not,
That needs to be a separate line. item.
yeah, that,
Yeah, that's
we're not
part of
prepared to
this.
come forward with that one yet.
So we-
There should be no cost to any of
It's
this.
presented, but it's a separate line item.
So 1923 needs to be
Omitted from here. And we brought that as-
1923 needs to come off this.
Needs to come off.
And will be brought back later?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other-
Wasn't that, I think that was an agenda item later on, if I'm not mistaken, but thought I saw that, okay.
It's not it.
I believe that was a separate line item.
Yeah,
because
it was.
Separate from the time.
Okay. So if we don't approve this, what's our ramifications?
Well, obviously, we don't anticipate getting into these days.
Yeah.
Contractually, they can ask for them, and only the days, well, actually, they've asked for more days than that, but only the days that we also document and agree with are the ones that have been recommended. And there should be a listing of the actual days. I've got a letter in
There is.
there back up, which we haven't experienced in the last few months, but we haven't done a time extension in nearly a year, so this goes back to 18.
Goes back to October
Yes,
26,
so it was
18.
October of October month of last year was the last time we did a time extension. So these are the days that we have incurred and we have tracked and the contractors have asked for. Obviously, unless something unforeseen happens, we won't be getting into these days. But extending that contract alleviates them coming with any kind of claim, is what it amounts to. Accelerating their schedule to finish early.
Other questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
I'll second.
motion by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just to clarify that.
With the correction.
Oh,
The correction,
yeah,
that's
we
right.
need to make that correction.
Yeah, with corrections.
Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no, thanks for
Okay.
catching that.
Item 16, review and consideration for approval of revised BG1 for the GRC Fieldhouse Athletics Project BG 18334 to modify the contingency and funding support to support change order for artificial turf for the amount that is above the current contingency balance. Mr. Christie.
I have a copy of that in there. Yeah, the BG1. Did I miss it? It would be my recommendation, based on last month's meeting, the direction of the board to instruct architects, engineers, construction management to prepare a revised BG1 to include the cost of full synthetic turf at the baseball and softball field. So that's what this is.
Board member questions, comments?
So we're taking the entire 1.3 million out of general contingency?
No. The breakdown here. You'll, on the, I think it's about the third, maybe the fourth page, counting the agenda request item in the front where it shows residual funds. It's on about the fourth page, third page, I'm sorry. Yours is different than this, what's on your computer.
So what we're...
It's the...
third page.
You're talking about the 139?
Yes. $139,847.80 is coming out of residual funds from projects that we've completed, and those funds are available for another capital project.
The 16A.
It's on 16A.
And it's a revised 16A. There was one we got on Thursday, and this is the revised one on
Okay.
Friday.
And we're looking at the one on Friday is one that we're recommending. And then another $250,000 of it is earned interest and money that was set aside for the project, and then the remaining balance would come out of your general fund contingency.
I thought the last time we met, the interest income was quite a bit more than $250,000.
It was, there was an adjustment made by the auditors to the way the allocation calculation was being done. So it's pulled back a little bit of interest back into the general fund off of the project.
So does that interest income exist of 400-some thousand, I think it was mentioned in the last meeting? Or does it not?
It was not 400,000, it was only, it was like 240 something is what was shown.
On this project.
Other
616.
Total.
Had quite a bit, you've got two projects going on. The 16,238 has quite a bit of interest up to the 800,000 range. This project only had 200, I think it said 241 is what you all were presented with, and it's down to 218 right now.
Okay, so the other,
So we're thinking by the end of the project, we'll have at least 250, if not a little bit more, but I was being conservative there.
The numbers we talked about last time on the gym was 373,841 in interest and 241,811 on the field house for a total of 615,650.
So this is, we're only talking, the amount of interest here is only on the field house part of the project. It's the interest, earned interest on the field house part of the project, because that's where this piece is.
Okay.
so we can't take the interest off of the other project?
No, you can't mingle
Okay.
projects.
So the interest of that project over, when that project's completed, will come back into
So
our general
essentially, the
fund?
way you see residuals listed
Could be a
here,
residual.
when we close that project and KDE says it is a closed project, and whatever residuals are left, you can then commit to another project at
Another
that
capital
point.
project.
So when they're active projects, they are separate projects, and you cannot mingle the monies in any way whatsoever.
So if, when that project, the big project is completed, and you said it was 800,000 in interest?
Well, total,
Oh, okay.
we'll use about 400,000 on scoreboards and have about
Okay.
400,000 left.
So 373,000
Yes.
on the gym. When that project's complete, that money can be taken and put back in the general contingency fund?
No, sir.
No.
It has
to
to
be in
set
construction.
in a construction thing like this right here, where it's listed as a BG number and residual funds.
Yeah.
It sits in construction.
And just
until you
accrues
commit to
interest?
Another project.
Just accrues interest at that point?
Yes.
Okay, so it sits in that fund, so say when the next construction project comes up, say a preschool, we could use those funds for that.
Correct.
So,
That's what you're seeing on this list.
Yep.
These projects are projects that are completed, and these were funding of various sources in there, whether it be contingencies, or I don't think there was any interest on any of these.
A few of them had a little bit, but when they read
They're
it,
mostly
it's a certain
contingencies.
percentage of when I have to transfer out of our general fund. So I only transfer interest out of general fund per the requirements of our auditors as a percentage.
okay.
But these amounts that you see are all monies was left off from past projects that had to be set aside and could only be used for a capital project, which is what this is, so we're asking to use those now. Any that's left on the projects that we have going on right now, at a future date, when we finish all the BGs, the 4s and 5s, and get everything completed, any monies left at that time would be set aside, just like these residuals that would be available to use on any future projects.
So right now, the total funds available, that's including a $3 million bond sale, 6.1 in 6.1, assuming that's in our contingency.
That's general fund dollars, yes.
And everything that has listed here comes to $9.4 million. So that's the total funds to date that's available.
For this project, if you approve this BG and then it gets sent to KDE and they approve it.
So and then we would take the 1.3 off that 9.4.
Well, essentially that 6.1 sitting up there under cash and general fund,
Mhm.
sitting in the project already that has been approved is $4,986,111. That's what's already
was the
in
old number.
the construction project.
Up 1.2.
That's a hard number
Up
to
1.11.
say.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah.
1.1.
But it's comparing the two,
So that's already there, and the difference is $1,120,471.20.
That's how much-
Is what you're taking out of general
So
fund.
we're having to put an additional 1.1 million in general fund dollars into this, if we approve this.
Correct.
In addition to using the residuals and the earned interest on this particular project.
So the reason for this revised BG1 is if you move forward as we were directed with this change order, you would have been over your contingency. You wouldn't have had money. It would have went to KDE and they would have rejected it because there weren't funds in the project. So what this is doing is the district coming up with a revised BG1 that shows adding monies to your contingency because of the size of the artificial turf, would have exceeded what you currently had. And so this way, we're kind of letting KDE know that the district has the funding capability with residual funds, interest earning, and additional cash to general fund to support the change order. And so what'll happen is once that work is completed, it'll come through on a pay app through us and Codell for board payment, not until that actual work is done.
So, Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, so last year's board approved $6 million into this fund.
Correct.
And then approximately 490-some thousand, $4,900,000-some thousand was used because bids came in lower. And going back now from what that original takeout from contingency is about a little over $100,000 more than what we originally meant to commit, correct? So we're basically looking at about another 100-some thousand of what our original commitment was to this project. If you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, because you're originally committed exactly $6 million even, so you can see
Correct.
the additional
106 is the addition.
And we came in way under our bidding, and that's why we were able to return so much money back to it. So if you look at what our board did last year, basically, we're $106,000 more committing to this project.
maybe in a few minutes, you please go ahead.
Okay. I've given this an incredible amount of thought in the last week and woken up in the middle of the night thinking about it. It's certainly clear to me from our last discussion that there's certain non-negotiables on this project that you all want. You all want this to be a showcase. You want us to put the finishing touches on this project. You want us to do it right. You want us to be glad we built it in a certain way and not have regrets later on of why didn't we do it this way. And really would like to take the opportunity to set the pace and stop following other districts. And even though there are design risks, because you all told us the last time you've never done a full artificial turf project like this in the past, is that right?
We did University of Kentucky.
Yeah, on high school.
On the high school level.
But the University of Kentucky.
Does UK have the differential in height on the?
Yes.
Okay. So let's assume that you all could do it under artificial turf. Let's assume that this could be done under artificial turf and everybody happy with it. But, from my perspective, I went back and I looked at the video and, we talked about, well, first of all, we talked about a $1.4 million project and we kicked around using $600,000 interest money and talked about contingency funding that we might be able to use. But now we're presented with something that uses $1.1 million in general fund money. And you're certainly correct, Mr. Peridot, we put $1 million back, but it's still, when we project at the end of the year, our contingency fund balance of being about $8 million, if we take $1 million out of there, that takes it down to $7 million. It skinnies that down. To me, it really just changed the characteristic of the project, having to put that much more general fund money into it. I've spoken with a lot of folks in the last 3 weeks. I even visited with the director of sports turf over at UK. I went over there with an ag group from GRC. And after much research, and I don't know, they noted in here in their change order that it would add another 45 days to the project. Is that true? Okay. So this potentially would add another 45 days to their project. I really think, my assertion is that we should get a second opinion on this because it's such a huge amount of general fund money. And talking to these folks, I think there's a possibility that we could do a natural turf option under a tweak that some other districts do. That the key thing to get natural turf to work correctly is to maintain it correctly. And quite frankly, it's important also with artificial turf to make sure that you're maintaining it correctly. I read an article in the New York Times talking about one of the big causes of injury is not the particular surface that you have, but the way it's maintained. And I think we could potentially have, if we're maintaining it correctly with the right folks involved, we could have a beautiful facility. I mean, you go to Whitaker Ballpark, that's natural grass, that's beautiful. But the key is, how do you do that and make sure that you can keep that level of safety and that level of impact for our community, which I think we want. We want both of those. And the way that I understand through this project, this research that other people are doing it, is they actually add an additional person to the staff, which essentially has the responsibility of being responsible for the grounds and turf. This person typically has a 4-year degree, and they know how to grow grass and how to grow it beautifully and how to grow it safely. And something else that we could potentially do if we chose that path, and all I'm suggesting is we get a second opinion before we go forward on it, is that if we did that, potential that person could supplement what we're doing in our ag department right now and do what some schools over in Virginia are doing and have a full-fledged turf management program that could be taught in part by this 4-year degree person that would be in charge of it. And you think, well, how are we going to pay for this person? Well, we're going to have to recarpet this thing. And let's just assume the recarpeting of it in round numbers might cost, with fees, $600,000, and it might last 12 years. So, I mean, it might be 15, might be 10, but that makes easy math for me to understand. So essentially, we ought to set aside $50,000 a year, knowing that we're going to have to recarpet this thing. But the difference between $66,000 in sod and $1.5 million we got a lot of money we can pull out of that for additional fertilizer and seed and things like that and still come out ahead. I'm not an expert on this. I just think before we commit to this amount of money, that we ought to bring in an independent expert that doesn't have a dog in this fight. I'm not saying you guys are wrong, but just to give us a different perspective, and then we can say we're fully informed, this is the way we ought to go. And it could be after that, we ought to go with artificial turf. And I'm not talking about a delay of 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I mean, I'm available. If we can get somebody in 2 days, we can talk about it. But it just, the whole complexion changed when that number went up so high, and I just thought, maybe we need to get a second opinion. You know, just like when you go to the doctor and they say, wow, that's going to be big. Let me get a second opinion on it. Again, not criticizing your all's work. I'd love to get a second opinion. So I feel like as a board member that I'm fully informed of all the options. And then after we get that, we might just, we might choose that weigh the pros and cons, and artificial turf is still the best way to go. Or who knows, maybe we'll come out of that with some hybrid thing where we do, I don't know, the batter's boxes and artificial turf and infield one way. I don't know, because I'm not an expert in it. I want to throw that out for the board's consideration. But I certainly don't want to delay what we're doing significantly. I just thought it's a lot of money that we ought to consider that.
And I think those are things that we should consider, and I think, so I know for myself, I've looked into a lot of those things as well. And, the cost that I see and the people that I've talked to is not going to be that much difference over that course of that 13, 14. I've even heard baseball fields going 15 and 16 years when I talk to people if they're well maintained. And, the side, I understand about it and how you do it. And you mentioned Whitaker Ballpark. And if you go to Whitaker Ballpark and it starts to rain, then 20-some people run out there with a tarp and go over top of it. So it takes that kind of commitment. And all the things you say about sod, I believe that they're true in those things. But there's one factor that we can't ever figure in. That's called weather. And I don't care, when you have a sod field, there is a certain time of year that you can't get on that field. You're not going to be able to use that field. With a turf field, we use it all the time. When it rains all day long and it quits raining at 5 o'clock, you play a game at 5:30. I just think everything that the positives just outweigh the negatives as far as I'm concerned. And when I look at the cost, I don't see a difference in cost. And when you talk about hiring, an expert, I think that expert gets awful frustrated after a while when he doesn't have, a 15-man ground crew to help him out as well as that goes. As far, we look at these big numbers that we have, and, at one time we probably had $18 million in a contingency, and I know that people look at this and say, oh, we're spending all this money, we're doing this, and, whatever, but this is not an either or. We're not taking away from anybody else. If you look at the contingencies, 129 school districts across this state, there are three school districts in the state that have more money in their contingency than us. That's Jefferson County, Fayette County, and Oldham County. Now, I don't know what the budgets of Fayette and Jefferson, but they are exorbitant. So Oldham County is $120 million. That's a little bit more than us, and they have, probably $4,000 to $5,000 more dollars in their contingency than we do. Even after doing these projects and other things, we'll still be in the top 10 of the number of money that we have. There are people out there that operate every year on 4%, and don't get scared over it, Alicia. I'm not saying, Alicia always says 10, I say 8, and she says 10 right back to me all the time, and I understand why she does that. But there's people that do that on a regular basis, and, and I've heard comments over the past 2 weeks, well, you're taking away from this, you're doing this. We're not, I don't know that this board has ever taken away from anything. I don't even know any request that's ever come up academically that we've ever turned away. And that $1 million, it doesn't scare me in a sense of what this can do for this community and how it just keeps on giving and going on. I just think this facility could be something that can be a showcase, as you said before, and I'm not discounting your things, and that's the belief that you have. But I just think, that we could come in here and we could bring a turf person in 2 days, and somebody else can say, well, what about this? What if we need another expert in this? And this discussion can go on for months because we keep finding something else that we want to talk about. Sooner or later, we have to say, this is what we want for the people of Clark County, and we have to make a decision on it. This is our second meeting. Of course, it's been going around for a while, but this is our second meeting. We're talking about a third. I don't think that's necessary. Obviously, the board can decide on that, but to me, the turfing makes much more sense, and I think it's much more productive for the things that we want to do with this facility.
One of my biggest concerns was, if it would take away possible, other construction projects in the future, including like preschool. But after it was explained, that the interest money would still be out there for a capital project. So, because I really thought, like Mr. Heisel, that interest money would help pay for this too, but if it's out there, it's still there for that project. So I'm not too worried about that since that amount of money is allocated there. And I don't think the 1.1 million would make a difference in the preschool. I think we'd have the money or don't have the money. I don't think the 1.1 would cancel that project or delay that project. So, and I've mentioned before in other meetings, I think the benefit of the community, the commerce for the community, it can't be, it probably can't be measured, but it will be a positive impact. How much, we don't know, but it will be a positive impact. So, like I mentioned before, I was in favor of it. I'm still in favor of it.
Do we have any feedback at all from the coaches or the athletics director on what they prefer? Because I look at what the baseball league as a whole does, and there's very few all turf, artificial turf. So for people who can have whatever they want, and I understand maintenance is an issue, but they can have whatever they want and they have real turf. And I just would think that what they have to say would be important, even though they only may be here for a couple of years.
So what do you mean by the people that can have whatever they want?
Like the baseball league, the pros.
Well, again, I think you get back to staffing there. You could go to the pro and you're probably going to see 100-person ground crew. And I don't know how far up you may know more about what I'm talking about than that, with those kind of things. And I certainly understand that you see people all the time that will switch back to turf, and they'll talk about some safety issues and what players like to play on and those type of things, but there are always issues. And those games get rained out more than others do. We're talking, if that baseball team, if the Cincinnati Reds are playing on their field, guess who plays on that field? The Cincinnati Reds. And they play their season, okay? This would be a facility that I think could be used year-round. As we've said before, we've talked about football teams having practice on those fields, soccer teams having practice on those fields. All that goes out when you're talking about sod. I mean, we're in a different position, I believe, than what everybody else are. We're talking about durability on year-round type of a facility. I understand why the pros do it. If people want to play on grass, I understand that. And they got multi-millions of dollars, but they don't worry about rainouts. They don't worry about the condition of their turf because somebody's going to go out there with clippers and clip every one of them down to where it should be. That's not going to happen with us. Weather's going to make a difference. When weather comes, it's going to make a difference. There's going to be a time that you cannot be on that field when you've got sod on there. They're just going to say, all right, it hadn't rained in 30 days here in the summertime in the middle of July. Nobody's going to be on that baseball field. And same way, we used to treat the football field. There were certain times when it rained, we said, well, junior high, you can't play on it tonight, you can't do this. We eliminate all that when we go
Mr.
to the
Chair,
turf.
and I don't mean to cut anybody short on their discussion, but, the issue that's before the board tonight is whether or not you all are going to fund, you've already made the decision. You all already went with turf, so
Right.
the only issue before
Oh,
this
whoa,
board
whoa, whoa.
tonight.
When did we decide we're going with turf?
That's what said in the motion, I believe.
I thought that was a motion from
That was
last
a
year.
motion from last
The
week.
motion was to
Direct-
approve a BG, the motion was to direct the architect, we can go back and read it, to prepare a revised BG1 that reflects turf. That was, I mean to interrupt you rudely, I'm sorry, but we can go back
Well,
and look
two
at it
things, it
again.
was a change order, and the change order required a BG1.
Not last week it was. We got a change order coming up after this,
Right.
3 weeks ago, and again, I didn't mean to rudely interrupt you, Brian, I'm sorry. We can go back and look at it, it was just to direct you all to prepare a BG1.
Well, the only thing that's on here today is whether or not to approve the BG1 to modify the contingency and funding source to support the change order to the artificial turf for an amount that is above the current contingency. So this is a funding, this particular motion is a funding motion.
Correct.
Are you all going to put the money in there? Because if not, you can't send a negative project to get approved by KDE if there's no money in it. And that's what this motion says. This motion says it is to modify the contingency funding source to support the change order. It is not this is not a discussion of whether it's turf or not turf. This is whether or not you're going to fund this particular revised BG1.
Are you saying we could approve this BG1 to put another $1.1 million in general fund money in here, and then turn around on our next agenda item, which is the change order, and table that?
You could table any of these. but-
Well, I mean, so all we've done is we're sent to KDE, said, hey, can we add some more money to this project? That would be what this would do. And then potentially, and we're just talking here, once we get to the next one, which is the change order, we might, if a majority of the board felt that, we could table that and then not put that change order into effect while we looked it up, while we've got a second opinion.
But this particular one under 16 is a funding project, and I know that y'all, I don't want to inhibit discussion, but from a legal perspective, all we're doing on 16 is saying, are you going to fund it or not? This just covers Alicia, right, Alicia?
Yeah, the motion made by Mr. Talby was for the board to direct the architects to move forward with preparing revised BG1 and for providing turf for the baseball and softball fields. This was last meeting. So, I mean, that pretty much said that that's what we wanted to do.
And what he actually said was revise the BG1 to provide turf. The and for, that wording didn't happen. I've listened to it 5 times.
Well, I'm sorry, we approved the minutes. You just mentioned we
And
didn't make any
that's why I made a
corrections.
notation about it.
You didn't, I mean, you just said you were fine with it, so.
Well,
This
so
is what it
here we
says.
are with the BG1 sitting in front of us, and we still have
Correct.
another, we still get another bite at that apple.
Right.
We certainly didn't approve a change order at that time.
No, we didn't approve a change order, but we did direct architects and.
And he did use the word turf, and the
Yeah,
word
well,
turf encompasses artificial and natural.
No, you go back and listen to that whole conversation, up to that point, we were talking about artificial turf.
We were talking about artificial, we're adding emotions, we're talking about.
And then if we was talking about grass, we was talking sod. We never used the word turf referring to sod. Or sod referring to turf. Because we was using the word sod and, to refer to grass. And we was using the word turf as an artificial turf. So that's what, if we go back and look at the minutes, or the video, that's what we was discussing at the moment of my motion.
Okay, so we need to go ahead and approve.
And there wouldn't have been a need to even had the discussion last time if we weren't going to do turf. I mean, it would, the grass already comes with it, correct? I mean, that would.
Certainly wouldn't need a BG1
We wouldn't have
revised
had to do any of
for
that for
sod.
sod. So, I mean, that's what the motion was, I think.
But that's a 17 discussion anyway, right? According to Brian, we need to go back to 16 and decide whether we're going to fund this money or not, and then we can discuss all that other.
Brian, does 16 if we approve 16, I guess it depends on what the motion is, but 16 does not necessarily have to imply whether we're going to use the money for turf, whether it be artificial or natural or whatever.
It says for artificial turf.
Says for artificial.
Okay, well then that does tie in, unless one made a motion just to remove the reference to artificial turf and just say, we want to ask KD for permission to increase it by $1.5 million.
Well, I think they have a big question, if we're going to increase it for $1.3 million for grass.
Well, but we're essentially restoring it to the amount that it was last fall.
If I may, just to move on from this topic, this increase to the BG is not telling KDE what you're gonna use your contingency on.
Okay,
The
thank
change
you.
order on number 17 is what you're gonna tell KDE to use the money on.
Well, Mr. Thomas says it
Except
is.
under the language of 16 as
It does
it's
say
written, the
artificial
motion
So
that
that would
is
have
written
to be changed.
is, that's right, but the
That,
motion
but
as written,
As far as the money and what they see on the BG is not a direction to KDE.
Well, could one, if they felt like it for under item 16, make a motion to simply approve a BG 1 revision asking for more money and not specify what it's for?
yeah, you could.
Okay.
If that motion is made, then that would be the motion that would be before the court,
I could look at
or
that.
before the
Then we could
board, it would have to
debate the
require a
rest of
second
it.
and a second and a vote.
When I start voting.
You should tell our
I did.
chairman.
I passed it on already.
Okay.
What's that?
I need to.
A break?
Yes.
All right.
We can do this, whatever we're gonna do here.
So 16 needs to say that we're gonna,
Well, it needs to say whatever you all want it to say. You all
Yeah,
have to make
I
a-
mean, you can say exactly what it says right now, correct?
You can.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, guys, if you're for artificial turf, you leave it like it is. If you're not for it, you don't. I mean, that's as simple as I can say it to you.
time-wise, I mean, I know we're really at the point where we need to do something.
We could, I don't speak out there, but, I mean, we're getting to the point where you're not gonna have seed, sod, or turf at all down here this
Yeah.
fall, this winter, and it's getting close already. I mean, was it 30 degrees on installing carpet for the turf? We just need to know something soon.
What is it? 2 days? 5 days? 6 days?
60
2 days?
days ago, preferably. I mean,
Okay, well, I guess we missed it then.
I mean, you know, we've been, contractors and equipment sitting out there at a standstill waiting to start moving the earth, so.
You want to take a break? You all want to take a break? We leave. We're on.
We're gonna try to do a motion.
Motion.
I'm gonna make a motion right now for number 16 as is.
I'll second that motion. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes.
What was the count?
Did you vote?
We didn't vote. Did you vote?
I didn't vote.
Okay. Are you not voting? If you're not voting, you'll count it as abstaining.
Can 2 people pass a motion then? Two and two abstains?
An abstention is a vote in the affirmative.
Yep.
Wow.
So you're not voting. That's our official word. We're not voting.
So you all are both abstaining.
So the motion then would pass 4-1 with Mr. Talby, Mr. Peridot voting for, Ms. Richardson, Ms. Ritchie abstaining, making the count at 4-1. Item 17, consider, I'm sorry. Item 17, a 5-minute break, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, Ashley,
Thank you.
but I knew you'd speak up.
It was either that or float out of here.
Okay. returned from recess and he convened here. So item number 17 is consider approval of change order 22 to Rising Sun for GRC Fieldhouse Athletics Project BGA 2334 in the amount of $1,386,250. Mr. Christie. I don't know if we need you, but.
Based on the previous recommendation, board, my recommendations to approve change order. Pending KD approval.
Pending KDE approval.
Pending.
Board member questions or comments?
This is a lot of money. Why was this not bid out? I mean, I think they've got, what is it?
Your turf was bid out for the field, and you've got
We've got them under contract as is. We've got the only player in the area working on the site already, basically. We did the job, which was a concern and an issue when we did the project originally. They're the only bidders that we did. So, you've already got all the same players. You got your general contractor on site
unit price
on cheap. If you were to bid this out and get somebody else, you're gonna pay more than what you would, by change order contract. The big thing is Vesio, the sports field contractor. There's no competition in the area.
Is Vesio the one that's making $180,000 in profit, or is that Rising Sun?
Combination. Vesio's profit would be rolled up in their subcontractor price.
Okay, so.
15%, it would be, I'd have to look back at the actual change order, should be Rising Suns.
So Rising Sun's making $180,000 in profit on this little
Well, he's
tank here.
performing all the storm drainage, all the subgrade work as well, but he's entitled to 15% markup. Per the contract.
Is the bid that Vesio provided, is it in line with the price that he provided already for the football field? I know it's different turf, but.
It's different turf, I mean, I don't recall, we didn't have a line item, I believe, on this purchase order for the turf of the football field.
Okay.
$900,000 roughly, that's about the football field.
I mean, we put cost opinions together back in August, in that one memo that had, turf numbers that are kind of in line with what we're actually seeing. I mean, if you added the infield and the outfield together was $1,460,000, and this is $1,386,000. So it's actually a little bit under. I was attempting to include, for the most part, some of the additional costs for like Ross Tarrant, Codell, in terms of just the full change order cost with that. And so, we're really close to that even when you look at those other expenses that were included in the BG1. So.
Other questions, comments? Ms. Ritchie, Ms. Richardson.
Well, I wanted to say initially, I want our fields to be the envy, if you will, of other towns. I want that for our kids. I probably more coming out of the general fund contingency than I had thought. So that's a little bit of my hesitation. And not knowing, I'm, making a decision. I don't know a thing about baseball. I like to go to the games, but other than that, I don't really know if you prefer to play on artificial turf or you'd rather have, the real thing. I don't know. But, and I guess since the coaches and the athletic director isn't here to make any comment about that since we've moved ahead and we've gone through this work, that we approve it and we go from here. Because I think it will be a good thing for the kids. And I understand that we can play and we can hold tournaments, and You know, we had a great weekend with the band. That, you know, goes to say a lot about the things that we've done. It's just a lot of money.
Yes.
It's a lot of money for me, and I just don't take it lightly. So it's coming out of a fund that I get uncomfortable depleting too much.
And that's kind of why I went through kind of where we were in our contingency compared to other people, and
I appreciate that.
and you know, we went for so many years that we would not spend out of that. And, you know, and again, I think Alicia had told me earlier that this will take us right at 10%. And I'm telling you, you know, and I guess I have that knowledge of being in school systems for most of my life. And most districts that I'm in, people looking to make sure they were at 3 and 4% most of the time with that, and how tremendous it is for our district to have this. I'm telling you, if we spend the money that we put on this agenda tonight, with the money we've got left over, there's people out there that would do anything to have this amount of money in here. And I know when you look at, you know, we were 18 million at one time or whatever, but to me, the 18 million alarms me a lot more than what the 7-8 million does.
Right.
Because we were taxing people and we were not spending it on our kids.
And I agree with that, that's right.
Other comments, question?
If this did not go through now, you've already started to prepare for the turf, correct?
We've not done any of the actual physical work, but yeah, I mean, the wheels have been in motion since the last meeting. I mean, I walked out here thinking, that's why I wrote the change order. I took it as a direction to proceed. We've had a few meetings and you know, and none of the work has actually begun.
So there would be no cost if it didn't?
I wouldn't say that. I don't know if the material's been ordered.
That's what.
I don't think it has, but I mean, you know, as far as Codell's concerned, we have really incurred some cost, but these guys have done a lot of design and a lot of head work.
Which we'd have to pay for.
Right, there's a lot of details and a lot of things that happened as a result of, and there was a lot of work that went into trying to determine pricing for all the different scenarios that we looked at. And, you know, that's not something that's going to be included in a price other than the price for this turf, which, you know, is a part of the overall project, if you will, trying to help you understand what different options are.
Well, what happens if the prior item we send to KDE and they turn around and say no? And just for the fun of it and say, you all approve this change order, and then they say no, what sort of pickle does that put us in?
Well, I mean, I guess if they say, well, first off, it would be the two notions that you have, 16 and 17, that you've passed 16, are kind of hand in glove, okay? I would venture to share that the Department of Education would have a hard time receiving from Clark County Board $1 million increase to the project without any explanation as to why. Okay, I mean, they're not going to be like, okay, yes, you can just put money in there because you have it. I mean, they would want to know why. Just by, and the flip of that is, like I mentioned, that if you sent the change order in there that we exceeded your contingency, they're going to have to say no, and they're doing due diligence to say, do you have the money for it? You have to show us that. So whether you put the change order first or the BG1 first in the motion, they kind of go together.
But my question is, that, you know, 16 passed, if KDE gets that and they go, nope, we don't approve it. And we've already approved 17, what happens then?
Well, then we would, that's why you're approving 17 pending KDE approval. So these will go in there together, and they'll be able to look at a BG1 and review where are the funds coming from. I would tell you that since it is a turf project, we would expect most of that to be a general fund, you know, cost, like they have always shared with us, that they don't want somebody using bonded money for a turf that, especially with football, has an 8 to 10 year life expectancy, and it's a 20-year bond.
You all right, I'm sorry, I forgot those 3 words, pending KDE approval. Sorry about that.
So that's important. I mean, that's where that actually allows KDE to review this together to see the, the merits of the change order. And they could come back and say, we think you ought to bid it. And I think myself and John Hagan, we would argue that, wait a minute, here are the facts. We've got somebody already on site, they're doing all this other work. To have another general contractor try to somehow come in and bid this to be Rising Sun, to have all the dirt work, earthwork that had to be adjusted, would be a nightmare. And that's why they've allowed larger project changes like this to be developed with a change order, as long as there's review on the part of the architect and the CM. So that's where that would come from. And then the only other thing would be is if they look at the BG1, and I can't imagine how they could say no when it's your general, it's your dollars. You're not even asking for a bond sale for that.
Yeah. Other questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion for item 17 with the words pending KDE approval added to it.
I'd like to make a motion for item 17, that we table item 17 to a future meeting.
We have a motion on the floor. Did I have a second? Motion dies for lack of second. This time, I entertain a motion for item 17 as written, again with the words pending KDE approval.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Talby. I'll second that motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Was that a 4-1? 4-1. Mr. Heisel with the nay vote. Item 18, consider approval of change order 311 to Hinkle Block and Masonry LLC for the GRC Fieldhouse Athletics Project BG 18334 for a credit in the amount of $20,105.56.
Motion for the approval of the change order for the credit of $20,000.
Board member questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Ritchie to bring 20,000 back. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second that, Mr. Hessel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Item 19, consider approval change order 36 to lead building materials for GRC High School Field House and Athletics Project BG 18334 in the amount of $0.
Approval, recommendation of approval, change order 36. No cost.
Any board member questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Ritchie.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item number 20, consider approval change order 361 to lead building materials for the GRC Fieldhouse Athletics Project BG 18334 in the amount of $20,105.56. There goes your money, Ashley.
I'm not making that motion.
Mr. Christie.
I'll make the recommendation for that.
All right. Mr. Heisel makes the motion to have second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Talby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Guys, I know it's late. We probably got through all your stuff. Thank you for being here. Is there anything else that you all have? Or I mean, just feel free.
Explain those last couple, so all that was Lee Building has purchased Hinkle, is what that amounted to, so you're
Just change them together. I don't think there's any other questions for them here, is there? Okay. Thank you guys for being here tonight.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Internal board business, consider approval of allocation to junior achievement in the amount of $2,500. This is something I think we've done every year for junior achievement. I think they work in several of our elementary schools with that. Any questions or comments?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Ritchie.
Second.
Second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consider appointment of board member to District Title IX Committee. I would like to be on this, and I think I can appoint others, but if there's somebody else that has a dying interest in doing it, I would look at that as well, but I would like to be on it myself. But I just wanted to bring it in front of the board. I just didn't want to appoint myself without bringing it in front of the board. So, is And I think Mr. Thomas is going to be on that committee as well this year.
Who all's on that committee?
It's mostly, I think they have to have a makeup of boys and girls coaches. They have to have administrators on there. And then there were some other suggestions, and some of the suggestions were board members that were in the, I went through and looked at the thing, and some other suggestions were board members and board attorney. So I thought we would get involved with that as well. But I think there is a requirement of so many girls coaches and so many boys coaches like that.
There's a makeup of the committee, just like there is for facilities, and they give you a diagram for makeup. We do have a full-blown Title IX audit in February of all sports.
And those are open meetings, anybody can come to as well. Those are open announced meetings at that time, so if any board member does want to come, you
Only one
can.
board member's allowed to sit on that committee.
No, I don't know that, I don't know
What was the question?
if more than one board member could sit on that committee. I don't know, I mean, I think the high school makes up the committee. I think they're in charge of putting the committee together. And I say that would be a question for them. I know we asked to have a board member and an attorney, and they agreed to that. But I think Jamie is the school, Jamie Keene is the school. And I think part of his job, if I'm not mistaken, is to establish that committee. But if somebody else is willing, I'll definitely ask.
I would just like to have a female on there, and a male, personally.
That's fine with me.
I mean, I just think it would, I mean.
No, that's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with that at all.
That's
I mean, I think you could, why don't you just run that?
Find out.
Because I think the next meeting is November 18th at 8 a.m. at the high school.
Well, if they don't want us, it's okay. If they do this, I guess.
Well, I don't have a problem with it. I just don't know what I mean, their rules tell them what they have to have within the school, but then it gave suggestions for other people to be on it, and it did list board members and board attorney. And I thought, well, let's get some representation there.
We'll rock, paper, scissors.
And I think Mr. Stump is the district person on there as well. So,
I don't know, what do you think, November what?
November 18th at 8 o'clock at the high school. I'm not sure where at the high school that will be.
Probably in the flex room.
Probably flex room, but it is. All right. Item 23, consider approval of board funding of athletic uniforms, $115,000 and band.
Wait, don't we need to appoint you?
No. No, board chair can appoint people to a
So you just
committee.
appointed yourself?
So I just appointed myself. What I was doing is I wanted to bring it back there to let you all. No, and maybe another one there. I mean, so,
Just making sure.
I just didn't want to show up and do it, and you all said, well, I didn't know he was on that committee, so.
We'll still say
No.
that, just.
But that's all right, fine. I like to keep that up.
Okay, continue on.
All right, consider approval of board funding of athletic uniforms, $115,000, and band instrument equipment replacement in the amount of $150,000. These were on the proposals I put out probably about 3 months ago, and had them on different agendas, and I've asked other board members if they had other ideas or anything about them. They've been out there for principals to see, as some of you all have seen some of the stuff principals have done. The funding for the schools that we would attempt to do would be when we come back on the 29th and do the testing. That's when they would give us their proposals at that time of what they would do with their additional monies that that we may give them or whatever. And again, this is totally a board decision at this time. The athletic uniforms, I know I've got a question about that, and that's not buying everybody new uniforms now. That's a 3-year period. Most teams go in a 3- and 4-year rotation. And from my standpoint, I thought it would be a good idea that at least that we provide one uniform for everybody. We got new facilities and things out there that everybody would get the new uniform. Takes a lot of pressure off the high school having to buy those type of things. I know we've done some other things for the high school as well to help them out, but these are just my thinkings, but it is up for board discussion.
So initially, we had talked about doing a lump sum for each school.
Right.
And so we're not,
And that's still, but that will be we'll put all those things into play when we come back on the 29th when they go over testing.
Okay.
And schools will tell us at that time how they would think that money that they would have is going to benefit them in their academics with that.
So would it be okay to put this on that same one? So that way we would know.
Well, I was just thinking that meeting may be a rather long meeting because we're going through every school, and that way we're doing it with the schools in that. This would be just a separate deal with it. I mean, we could always put it on there. I don't know, if you have particular questions. I mean.
No, I would just like to have them all with academics, and then before I would like to know what we need academically wise before we hand out a uniform, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, again, and I'll go back to the same speech I gave a while ago about contingency. Guys, this is not an either-or thing. I mean, we have got money, it's just a matter of whether we decide if we want to spend it. That's just the way we look at it. I just feel like that our booster clubs have been given an unreal responsibility over the last 4 or 5 years, trying to raise money for uniforms and stuff. We've got something, we're trying to get buy-in from everybody. Your school, obviously $115,000 if your school is buying uniforms. Now they don't have to buy uniforms, that's additional funding for the school. The band's been here several times to ask about some of the things that are there. This gives an opportunity for that, but it is at board member discretion.
Mr. Peridot, regarding the uniforms, do you have any details on that as to how that breaks down in a cost and then what the age of the current uniforms is? Like, I'd almost kind of feel silly if we just bought uniforms 6 months ago and then.
That's what I'm saying, that's what I just said with the 3-year rotation. This is a 3-year deal. So you look at the rotation, if somebody bought a uniform last year, then 2 years from now, they would be getting the, most schools have, and with your Title IX committee, you have to submit to them what your uniform rotation is. In other words, how often are you buying uniforms for your players? And most people do a 3- and 4-year rotation for uniforms. So every 3 years, you're getting a new uniform, or every 4 years, you're getting a new uniform. And the high school should have one of those in place as of right now. They should have that in place, and because they have to submit that to the Title IX at the KHSA. And so we would not be, if somebody just bought a uniform, we would not be buying them a uniform. It would fall within this rotation.
So this sort of kind of maybe then is a 3-year plan.
It is a 3-year plan.
So you don't give the $115,000 right now?
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't, this would be a fund that would stay at the board anyway. This fund would, and it would just, I was assuming Alicia would put this back, and then when they needed uniforms, if the volleyball team needed uniforms next year, they would submit their thing and go that way. If the football team needed uniforms, they would submit theirs at the time they needed theirs. But the schools already have a rotation plan in place as of right now.
So the cornerstone is of this is the 3 years. So if somebody, just like you said, I just want to make sure I get it in my dead set. If they just bought them last year,
Not gonna get new ones.
They wouldn't be getting new uniforms.
the motion, if you fine tune it to that, would be, it would provide for a fund of up to $115,000 to allow for a 3-year rotation of uniforms.
And where I got the number at, to our BSN representative, I said, I want to know what a number is to outfit every sport that we have. And I talked about golf, I talked about bowling, I talked about bass fishing, right on down the line, what it would take for each one of those teams to be outfitted. And this is the kind of number that they came up with.
For both the junior and high school?
It's not for the junior high, this is for the high school. It's for high school.
I like the idea. I guess the stumbling block I have on this is I've asked, since I've been since been on the board, to see a rotation of what's out there today. And some people say they have a rotation list. I've never seen a rotation list. I've asked 3 or 4 times, and until I see a rotation list on, I don't think I can prove that, because I like the idea. I think it's important. I like the 3 years, But until I see a rotation list of what's been done and who's got what and who received what and how much for each team, you know,
I think that's
why
why,
I'm blocked a little bit.
that's why you're seeing a board member and the board attorney on the Title IX.
Yeah.
Because
Because I haven't
Because,
haven't
you know,
seen it.
that should be-
I'll email each of you a
that should
rotation
be
tomorrow.
public knowledge.
I'll try to get it tomorrow. I'll try to get it to you tomorrow. Email you a copy of the rotation. I think this year was boys soccer, some other minor sports. They'll do 2 or 3 sports, and when they do minor, they'll do more sports in 1 year because they're minor sports. And then when you get to a football or a baseball or a bigger team, they don't do as many sports, but there's a rotation.
And I'd like to
It's a
see
4-year
if,
rotation.
I don't know if they break it down, but did the booster clubs, you know, purchase uniforms? Or did the school purchase
Yeah,
it?
if the booster club purchases, if the boosters purchase uniforms, then the school won't purchase the uniform. They still, the team will get $2,500, whatever their amount is that they can use to buy other things for the team.
So is the $2,500,
Not expected to buy uniforms. no.
so is that what a team is given, $2,500?
And I think that's what, I'd have to go back and look, but I think that's what it is in the off years. They get $2,500 provided to them, but then in the year of the uniform, they actually order the uniform.
Are you telling me their budget is $2,500?
I think I'm maybe out of,
I don't know, that seems very odd.
I don't,
Yeah,
I'd have to go back and
doesn't-
look, but somewhere the 2,500 played in when they're not buying, they buy the uniforms, whatever the cost of the uniform is. The school
And
pays
that
for
would be
it.
used to spend on warm-up suits or.
Yeah, the stuff,
shoes
carry
or
bags, shoes.
Whatever.
So you should have every team should have a budget.
Yes.
Yeah,
And then
And
you
I
should
may
be,
come
and
from
then you,
25.
and I don't know, I mean, again, I guess I'm just going back the way I did it, I'm not gonna say I was right or better, but we had a budget every year. And if your budget was $10,000 and it's your year to get uniform, you still got your $10,000, but you got uniforms that year. I don't know how they do it.
And I guess that's my concern too.
It's that way
I'm
still, I
not-
just don't know the amount.
I'm not familiar with how they're doing it.
That's,
I don't know, you know, how fair it's been out there, and I like the idea to have multiple board members on that Title IX committee, female and male, so hopefully both of you all, you.
Well, I think there is a lot of questions to be asked. And, you know, and Title IX is a very, very important. A lot of people don't understand how important that little legislation is. I mean, you know, technically, they could take all of your funding away from, federal funding away from you, and that's a huge, huge amount of money in this district. And, you know, they look at you every year to want to make sure that you comply with things that are there. If you don't comply, they don't cut you off right there. They give you an opportunity to make things right. So, you know, I think they would look on it if we were year after year not doing the things that we were supposed to do. But, again, that's why I think we've asked to be a part of this committee, because it is very important. I think a lot of us had some questions about it, and we wanted to make sure that we got those questions answered.
It's the $150,000 for the man, is that over a 3-year period too?
Well, you know, I would think, you know, in something like this, I think, you know, we have to look at where we're gonna stand every year. I know this is a figure that has come up before, it's 150. I would almost think that if we're gonna give them 150, it'd probably be another 3 years before we would think about doing another 150, but I wouldn't say that I would limit them to 50,000 a year, because I don't really know what their cost. Maybe they need $100,000 worth of instruments this year that'll last them for 10 years. So I wanted to leave that a little bit more flexible.
So it sort of ties together, raises a good question. If we said, well, we'd like to give them $50,000 a year for the next 3 years, can we make that commitment now? Can we make a commitment for years 2 and year 3? And I guess it's tied in on the uniforms too, or are we just limited to making commitments for the current year?
I think, you know, I'm not sure, and again, I might be able to answer you right there. I don't know that we can make a commitment for another year, but I think we can put aside amount of money and say you've got 3 years to spend this money. I think we could do that. I'm not sure about us committing potentially different boards to that amount of money.
and then who oversees that? Is that the principal?
Do what?
Who would oversee that money?
Well, that money would be here.
Okay,
But
so-
they would have to submit like a purchase order, or come get a purchase order to be able to do that. And I would assume that, they're, again, that would be in board, that would come up in a board expense or financial sheet, something.
And you'd have to approve that if they spend it, you have to approve it. I mean, it's not
Right.
like you're just giving it to them, you still have to go through your process. So
Right.
your procurement process will still have to be complied with.
Okay.
So what you're saying is we could set this money aside for 3 years, and it can't be spent until we approve the release of those funds.
That's right. But any future board, then they take that money right back.
Yeah.
If they haven't spent it.
Yeah.
If you haven't spent it.
If you haven't spent it.
A board can, any future board, you cannot bind a future board except for bonding capacities, capital construction projects. But as far, and of course, you've got.
Well, I mean,
or whatever.
it's even like our budget now. I mean, if something happens and we think we're not gonna get additional tax monies or something like this right here, we can say, all right,
Absolutely.
we're gonna cut this whole budget this time. We can take money back at any time with this. This is just, me, and again, I've tried to put it out there for a long time to generate any discussion from principals, from board members, from anybody that, like I said, I haven't tried to hide anything or whatever. I put it out here, and I know we've looked at it for 3 months. And, if we want to wait and try to do it on that night as well, we can. It doesn't, I'm just saying, this is just all an ideal of mine. We did this once before in the board several years ago. And I want to say at that time, I think we give out probably about 300,000 maybe. Do you remember how much it was, 200 to 300,000, somewhere in that range?
Between 250 and 3, I think.
Do we have this broken out from the rest of the money that we were talking about for a reason? Is there a reason we don't have it all together?
I mean, I'm not.
Like when we had, I guess, the list that you gave us initially had, what we would give each school.
Right, yeah. All my thinking was talking about agendas and cutting agendas down would be, let's put this part on this agenda, and then when we meet with the schools on the 29th and talk to them, then they can give us a proposal on the money that we have, or, or whatever we want to do, if we want to give more, or whatever else like that, that how they think that would benefit them based on, maybe their test scores or whatever things that they may need at their school. That was my only thinking of splitting it up, was just for agenda purposes.
Well, can we get an idea of rotation and what we think we're going to spend that on?
I think we could probably get that before the next meeting if you wanted to do that.
I'll do my best to get you a
And
copy of the
I've got-
current rotation.
I've got a copy of what was sent to me about what they thought each uniform was, if you want that as well. I mean, they sent that, I just put it in a lump sum right there.
I think I'd be more I like the idea. I'd be more comfortable of making a motion on it after I saw the rotation list.
Would we want Mr. Payne also maybe to break that down and what his needs are for that as well? And again, I think we put on there that we didn't want to pay personnel out of that. We didn't want to pay for a trip or things such as that. Obviously, it frees up other money for them, but I think those were some needs that all these people have expressed at least one time or another.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
So we just need a motion to table this to the 29th meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Is that Ms. Ritchie? Okay. Sherry seconds it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. I'm starting to get to that part where I can't talk. All right, consent items, we need a motion to approve items 24 through, well, let me say this first. Is there anything that anybody wants to pull off here or discuss beforehand?
Well, I don't want to pull anything off, but I do have a comment or a question, and I don't know if we can answer it or not. But I guess several meetings ago, we approved a new booster agreement. I'm curious if, how many of those has been re-signed and,
About all the elementaries have done theirs. The PTOs have done theirs. We've not had any high school ones at all.
Well, I would say that if you haven't got a high school.
We have all of them that make them current for this year, but with the new one that you all did, the new ones that was sent back out, we've not gotten one back.
Was that a policy change? I don't think we did a second reading on it, did we?
Oh, was there one in here this time?
I don't think it's a policy.
Hang on.
I don't know.
So it changed officially.
It's PTO boosted.
It was 2 readings.
Was that a policy change? If it was a policy change, did we have a second reading?
Yeah.
I don't think.
We had 2 readings.
Yeah, the elementary schools and the PTOs, we're getting those back.
Okay.
As we go.
I didn't remember the second
So what
reading part.
happens if?
Well, I'm saying, I mean, according to policy right there, if they don't do it, they cannot fundraise.
That's right. And fundraising is running a concession stand at the football game.
And if they've not turned one in, then, you know, that enforcement would go back to Mr. Christie of saying.
Can we just send out a reminder that they need to get that done by
Yeah.
Friday?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, just,
well, I mean, it just takes a signature, and I had a discussion with a Booster Club parent that wasn't happy with it, and when I told him, I says, it says exactly the same thing it is said from the time we've had this. The only thing we did was we spelled it out to make sure you knew that.
Right.
In the past years, it's been the same thing. In the past years, you had to buy from the company that was approved, and that company was approved by the high school, and you had to buy from them, and they bought from them. This time, there was a different company. I said, that's the only, I said, there is nothing in that thing has changed other than the fact that we spelled out what you had to do. It's the same exact thing.
And I hear that a lot, you know, wondering what that paragraph was for, and I just let them know it's to inform.
Well, I said, that's what it was, and that's the way it's been in the past. That's what I told them in the past. I said, you had to do that in the past, and you've got to do it now. We just told you that you had to. But I'm just saying, if people have not done this, then they're operating illegally, and they need to be told. And I don't know how many, if there's any school-wide, I mean, you know, of course, we only approve school-wide type of things, but at the same time, you know, if they're out there fundraising.
I don't know of any fundraising that any boosters are doing other than a concession stand.
I know there's been golf tournaments, I've played in them, so, I mean, I know that they've, that they have them out there, so, I'm just saying, you know, if they're not signing
baseball
the,
team just did one too.
if they're not signing the agreement right there, then that needs to come from Mr. Christie to the high school and just tell them that their fundraising is over with until that is signed. You know, so.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I've got a comment about 33 and 34 on, well, I'm sorry, the payment of accounts payable. Within that is, you know, as this credit card bill has grown larger, now it's about $162,000. I would just like to ask that the credit card statement be included in our packet from now on. We used to get a listing of the credit card, and it was just a little bitty amount. Now it's $162,000, and it's buried as a one line item.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to suggest is, I noticed in the general fund budget report that there's been some board member per diems paid already this year, and we probably ought to fine tune what our policy is on that. Do we pay them each month? Do we pay them whenever people walk in and ask for them? Is it paid quarterly or just every 6 months? I don't think we nailed that down.
We would actually like to do them any way that you all would want them. We can do them, but we just don't want to do a special run. We would prefer doing quarterly, and I would make that opportunity open to any of you. If you want your board per diems quarterly, all you have to do is let me know, and then at the next check run, you would, at that quarter run, you would get them. Or it can be, or you all can decide you want to do them all at once. That's up to you on how you do it. But I think with the discussion we had was we would do them quarterly. That was easiest for us to do them quarterly. But it's at your request if you want it quarterly.
It's open-ended right now, though.
If you,
Well,
yes.
it's, you know, and I don't, you know,
We'll
I don't
do
know
them
that you
quarterly,
can,
but if you all want them at
I mean,
any
I
time,
mean, you know, we come here tonight, and you want your money, you can put in for it
put
tomorrow.
and it'll be
I
run
mean,
on the next
that's, I
paper.
mean, that's, I mean, I don't think we can tell people when they can get paid, personally.
If it's not done at the regular time.
Just say.
Right now, it's just open
Just open
whenever you want.
And you know, unless it's creating a problem that Alicia wants to inform us about, I mean, I can understand how it's easy to do it that way, but I think, you know, however you want to do it, you should be able to do it. That's just my piece in it.
Is monthly an option?
Yes.
Quarterly, just so you all don't have to do a special check run when somebody in.
No, if we do it
sends in their
monthly, it's just at the
$150.
time of the month that we do it, when we, like,
We're doing payroll.
when we do our regular payroll.
They called and asked me, and I'm monthly.
Well, I'm not.
Well, you didn't.
Would you want to be?
Would it be, I don't want to be a special payroll.
No,
I mean, it would be
it'd be run,
integrated in
if
something
it's,
else.
if you're on
Depends whether you're
monthly, it'll be
I mean,
run.
they're not gonna run checks, so they do payroll.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
I don't think you are.
I mean, you can say you want it weekly, but you ain't gonna get it till.
So it wouldn't be a special pay run just.
No,
No,
it would not.
Integrated
We're not.
with what
We do
everybody
payroll
else.
runs every month.
I think twice a year.
It would
Yeah,
be the
that's what I
30th of the
did.
month.
Yeah.
Twice a year.
That's what we approve when we approve these pay, when we approve these accounts payable, these salaries down here, that's what we approve right there at that time. So, I mean, that's.
It's monthly.
So
I
you
get mine
can't.
every day, last day of the month, every month. That's what mine is.
And it's easy, we can do everybody that way if it's what you want to do. It's not a,
Integrated with a regular check run,
Yeah.
not a special
yeah,
check run.
exactly.
I think the only question I had reading your updates, Mr. Christie, there were some things in there about buses and motors and stuff like that. Is buses that we purchased, are they taking care of that, or is this an additional cost now, or what?
These are some costs that we're seeing on some older buses, and the dilemma on this one is it's an '07, it's a fairly new model, well, newer model,
Yeah.
but it's gonna cost $20,000.
Right.
We've already had to replace one this year, just wanted you to know that that's another one we're having to make the decision, do we invest another $20,000 in a bus that's that many years old? The bus wash you see in there, it's down and not operable. That was put in when that was built 20 years ago. The parts, there's no parts available for that one, so if we're going to continue an automatic bus wash, you're talking $150,000 to put one in. Right now, we currently are washing the buses by hand. And the way we were using it, every time we pull a bus in for maintenance, we would run it through the car wash, so we were putting clean-looking buses. I went to a Legends game for a school day one day, and they put a bus up on the big Trinitron, dirtiest bus in the lot, and it was a Clark County bus. So we did it now, every time a bus is pulled in for maintenance, we run it through the car wash, and the bus washes, not repairable. Of course, we're constantly, that's just some reminders, on that we're constantly looking for drivers. We're gonna be back to the point to probably do some outside advertising.
Are we looking at this being an agenda item in the future, right here?
It's possibly for the bus wash. On what we're gonna do with that. We haven't looked at it to a point that I'm not ready to bring that to you as a board, but that's in there to know that that's out there right now. Of course, we have 4 buses ordered, but this 07, 04 was not one that was due to be replaced. So it may, at this point, it may be one that gets replaced in lieu of adding $20,000 investment to a bus that's a '07.
Any deals like we got in the past, we can buy used buses from people?
We're trying, we watch for them, now we're looking everywhere, we constantly watch for them. We bought some great deal from Fayette County on some buses.
What's our success rate on putting a new motor in? I mean, when you put one in.
We can do it, it takes us much longer, and you lose your warranty part. You lose your warranty on that engine.
But I mean, how much longer, I mean, do you think a bus lasts after you put that, we invest $25,000 into it, does it last a year?
Oh, no, we're gonna get a lot more, we'd have to get more than that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
we'd
I
have to get
just
a lot more than that out of it.
would like to know those things. Any other questions on consent items? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve items 24 through 36.
I'll make that motion to approve items 24 through 36.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion to approve item number 37.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Richardson,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Talby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Ritchie.
I'll second it.
Seconded by
Say y'all
Mr.
can sit
Heisel.
there, I'm leaving.
All those in favor say aye.
So make sure I'm clear on this, is there anybody else wants to get on the monthly payroll train, or do you want us to stay annually, I mean, the way it is?
I think I'm